Kathy Malloy here from Exile. It's tax day, or I guess it would have been in a normal universe, April 15th, 2020. We are still broadcasting from Exile, and yes, it is still me, not your humble and obedient servant, Mike Malloy. He is still suffering from some kind of malady. It is not coronavirus, we are sure, although we are still fairly sure. I think I may have mentioned this before. I think we all had this. I think we had this back in January. If you'll remember, when I think we've talked about it once or twice, when I scared away all of our podcast subscribers, when I filled in for Mike basically for a week or maybe a little more in January, right after New Year's, we all three of us, me, Mike, and Molly in that order. No, me, Molly, and Mike in that order got sick, and to varying degrees. I was sick about a week. Molly was sick about 3 days, and Mike was sick for about 3 weeks, if you count the laryngitis and the bronchitis that followed after the illness. But I'll be damned, it was like no other flu we've ever had. Mike and Molly both had flu shots. I never got the flu shot. I haven't had the flu since 1991, so I just stopped getting flu shots, essentially, because it just didn't seem pointless. It just seemed kind of pointless to me, no offense. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. Of course, I've gotten every other vaccine. But anyway, regardless, I just never get the flu. Well, this year I got the flu, and we all had the swabs, and we tested negative for the flu, like the coronavirus folks are too, but we were so sick, and we had such high fevers, and the fever would spike up to like 104. I think Molly's was at one point 104.5. It was just unbelievable. And for an adult, for Mike, it was like 103 for me as well, 104 at one point. Really high fevers, and all we wanted to do was sleep, and had a dry cough and just sleep, and I must have slept 36 hours out of 48 that first couple of days over. I don't even remember New Year's. I got sick New Year's Eve, and I was a zombie. But then I came back from it pretty well, and you, like these people you see who've recovered, the recovery was pretty fast. I recovered myself in about maybe 3-4 days after I'd say it was gone. I was back to speed, within a week. It really wasn't that bad for me. And Molly, of course, snaps back. If she gets sick, she never gets sick. If she ever gets sick, it's always so brief. And it was about 3 days. But those 3 days, she had a really, really, really high fever and just weak as a kitten, all of us. Anyway, it just sucks. And it's just another failure of this godforsaken Trump administration that we can't get antibody tested. Imagine what a big, beautiful world it would be. What a beautiful world if we could have antibody tests. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice? Prick your finger. I mean, now they have a saliva test that's going to be a lot better for everyone for so many reasons, obviously. Not the least of which is exposure for healthcare workers to cram something up someone's nose that's going to make them sneeze on you, Much better to just swab someone's cheek from a safe distance. Anyway, at least they'll have that test for the virus itself. But if we could get the antibody test, and then those of us who have had it, who, as we suspect we could be convalescent plasma donors. I donated whole blood about 3 weeks ago, and I'll go again as soon as I can. I've got O-negative blood, so I'm a universal donor, and I donate, regularly. But now I'll donate all the time. And good grief, if I could donate plasma and I had antibodies, wow, would be beautiful. It'd be huge. I can't believe how this psychopath, and we've talked about the DSM-4 criteria for Trump psychopathy many times, I can't believe how this psychopath has completely put himself front and center of this epidemic and this crisis, and not in any kind of good way. I mean, I think probably if you listen to the Best Of show that I put together, the classic comedy last night, I had the little bit that Mike was doing about when George W. Bush did the mission accomplished speech and he landed on the aircraft carrier with the giant cod piece, with the crotch rocket there for all the women to swoon over, and Chris Matthews. I thought Chris Matthews was going to have an orgasm that day, talking about how manly he looked. It was so weird. The whole thing was weird. The mission accomplished thing was weird. The USS Liberty crew being turned around and forced to go back for the damn event was weird. So screw it. I mean, this isn't news that Republicans have used, our troops, or used a crisis, or used a tragedy like 9/11 to their political advantage. It's what they do. They're ghouls. They're fiends. They're beasts. Look at Darth Cheney. He's on his second heart. He's still munching away on that one, I guess. It hasn't leapt out of his body yet in protest. Anyway, but I digress. So here's this orange monster withholding funds from the World Health Organization and withholding checks from the American people until he can get his name on them. Like he alone, like it's his money, like it's his signature on it. I will write my name, Donald J. Trump, on this check. Oh my God, it's our money. It's my money. It's your money. It's our money. It's taxpayer money. It's not his money. He doesn't have money. He's been bankrupt so many freaking times. He has no money. He has Deutsche Bank's money. He probably has some Saudi money. He probably has some Russian oligarch money. But Donald Trump doesn't have any money of his own. And dear God, if the lawsuits, if Pam Bondi would stop blocking the goddamn lawsuits, he'd have even less money. Because Trump University lawsuits could go forward, and all the other fraud lawsuits against him and his fake grifter family. I still cannot believe we're being held hostage by these con artists. It is reality television. Don't you feel it? Don't you feel like it? But not like any show you'd ever want to be on. I mean, it's like so much worse than Naked and Afraid. I would so much rather be out there like naked with a toothpick and some mosquito netting and trying to, fend my way through the alligator swamp. I don't know. I don't like this season of The Apprentice, season 13 or whatever. It's just not my kind of show anymore. But someday, honest to God, do you ever think about that? I think about this all the time. I can't help it. And I've thought about it since 2016, but now I think about it like all the time, every day, all the time. In the future, 100 years from now, 200 years from now, imagine that we're looking back from a perspective of, say, the Revolutionary War or the War of 1812 or something, that kind of perspective. We're looking back at it and going, oh my God, what the fuck was that? All we have is hope, right? Every time I see President Obama on television, I just start crying. I mean, he endorsed Biden. Everyone, of course, is coming out now and endorsing Biden. I guess it was sort of nice for them to wait until Bernie officially stepped down, and I think it happened in a good way. I don't think there was anything bad you could say about how this transition went. There was a lot of fear about, the Bernie bros, or people are going to go crazy. I never thought that was going to happen. Did you really? I mean, even without the corona crisis, honestly, I just did not think that we were going to be just mobs in the street if Bernie didn't get the nomination and it went with Biden. I think we're pragmatic enough as a country, and I definitely think that we're wise enough to see the gravity of this situation, that it is, you look around, it's life or death. This is life or death. I've seen so many tweets lately. I love this one about the anti-vaxxers, this just cracks me up. If this is what happens when you don't have one vaccine. Imagine if no one had any vaccines. Of course, that's almost what they are considering, isn't it? We find out now that there was some serious talk in the White House about just letting the virus run rampant through America. And I think that's what they were talking about in the UK, too. Maybe it's something about blonde guys with really weird hair. Maybe their brains don't function right, like Boris over there until he got sick. For the sake of the economy, you would let thousands and thousands and thousands of citizens die. British citizens, American citizens. That's okay. If you're a psychopath with weird blonde hair, apparently that's okay. Or it was at least something to be considered. And I think in Trump's case, if he hadn't had probably hellacious pushback, goddamn, we hope, from Fauci and all the others would say, no, Mr. President, you can't save the stock market on the graves of the American people. No, just that'd be wrong. He has no moral center. He has no moral compass because he's a psychopath, so he doesn't understand that. He doesn't understand that money is not as important as human beings. Good God. So, there you go. And now, of course, we've also found out on the same day that he wants to defund the WHO, the World Health Organization, in the middle of a crisis. He's just going to defund them because he's upset about China. He doesn't like how it's going down about China. So he's just going to defund the World Health Organization today. On that day, we also found out that had we taken measures that other countries took to flatten the curve, had we had shelter-in-place orders, had we done something in February, as the brave reporter asked, had there been any action at all in February other than just let's pretend, let's shut our eyes and lock ourselves in our rooms and hide under the bed, and let's get Matt Gaetz to put on a gas mask, and let's have Sean Hannity mock it and everybody joke and call it a hoax, and let's just pretend during the whole month of February when Trump went to rally after rally, to golf club, to rally after rally, to shaking hands and hugging people. I mean, let's just pretend that didn't happen, right? But had we not done that, had we done what the responsible countries were doing, where the leaders cared about their people, where they didn't want death in the streets, where they didn't want to see dead bodies for the sake of their ratings or the stock market numbers. They said instead of the numbers that we're seeing now, what did they say? That we might have had 6,000 or 16,000 and not the 60,000 that they're now expecting before this is over? Exponential. That's what it means. Exponential changes. Those are people you know, probably people I know or will know. I have not yet known anyone personally. I have a lot of people I know who have had relatives that I know I know them, and it's their family, their father, their sister, their brother, their sibling, that tragedy. But I have not yet personally had a loss personally where a family member or a friend I have known has died in my immediate circle. I'm very, very fortunate because I know most of you probably can't say that. And the healthcare workers on television that you see, I think I feel sorriest. I don't know who I feel sorrier for. I mean, there's so many victims in this. They're going to have PTSD if they don't have it already. I mean, you look at them, they look shell-shocked. They look like they've been in a war zone, and of course they have. They have that hollow-eyed, just, you don't know what I've seen kind of horror look on their, and those are the ones that have adequate PPE and are able to go home to their relatives, because most of them, not most of them, but a lot of them aren't. I wouldn't, even with a hazmat suit. If I was on the front lines of this, I wouldn't take the chance of bringing it home either. I'd sleep in the hospital basement. I just would. I think that's probably what most responsible healthcare workers do. And unless you're on your own, whatever, you take your own risk. If I'm not pretending that, I'm in that situation. I'm just saying that I think I would make that choice to just shelter at work. What an awful thing to have to do. You're isolating yourself from your family. You're isolated from your patients. Your patients are isolated. Having to die alone. You can't even see someone's face. You can't touch their hand. I can't think about it.
Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. You have your choice. You can listen to the ranting with the audio podcast, or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.